We did the $50,000 review. Now it's time to do the $20,000. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. That's right, we're talking about Greeny again today. The famous guitar used by Peter Green, Gary Moore, and now famously owned and toured with Kirk Hammett. These are some of the most expensive guitars Gibson has produced in a long time outside of fancy one-off art pieces. So let's just get into it and see, can you save 30 grand and get roughly the same guitar? Because that's the main purpose of this video. I want to see what are the differences. First off, this case is not aged anywhere near as much. Look at the bottom of this one. Now look at the bottom of the collector's edition. That one was decrepit. But that's not to say that this version has not been aged. And oh my goodness! I thought for sure we would still have the stenciled guys' names on here. No, this just looks like a general case that has been aged. So that is our first difference here with the 20K version. But we still have like the aged latches, the aged Gibson badge. But let's go ahead and see it. Okay, yeah, this is significantly less aged than the 50K version, but it's got all the hallmark characteristics like this line that was there. Looks like we do have a little bit of aging to our pickup rings. That's good. We've got some nicks and dings along the top, and obviously wood grain and flame going to be different on every example that you find. But we've got the lines around the knobs. We've got the two different styles of knobs. I actually saw one of these that didn't get the right knobs on it. That was a little bit embarrassing. But let's see, do we have the headstock repair? So far, looks like they tried to replicate that. But now let's get the feel, especially the neck. That's what I loved about that custom shop version, is how rounded over the neck was. I wouldn't say this has the exact same feel, but it's very close. Like they still did a similar relicking process, but I remember the back of that other one's neck feeling a little bit velvety, like it wasn't as finely sanded. But yes, we do get the headstock break back here. Now it's not a real headstock break. I imagine they just score it with a knife and then kind of pick away some of the finish to replicate the look of the original one. But my favorite thing about the 50K one was how rounded over the body was. Like I think we need a little bit more aging along this edge. And then I really remembered this portion on that guitar. It was like really rounded over, more so than just the typical carve. So this one does not have that. And just in case you're wondering, I'm surprised they actually still did the KH on this one. But next up is the biggest difference between these two. So we saw slight aging differences. That's not necessarily that crazy. But these do not have the Brazilian rosewood fretboard, and if you don't understand Gibson history and Brazilian rosewood in general, it is an endangered wood species. For a manufacturer like Gibson to use Brazilian, it has to be documented pre-ban wood. So naturally, whenever Gibson actually uses the Brazilian rosewood that they have, it commands some insane price tags, like we saw on the collector's Korina edition Flying V and Explorer that we documented in these episodes. So this one is basically just a regular custom shop Murphy Labs 59 standard that has been made to look like Greeny. I would probably say this is close enough if you wanted a Gibson custom shop release version but didn't want to or couldn't afford the 50K. But here's the thing about these. Gibson has not released how many that they are making, but it appears they're going to be sending these things out in batches. So the first batch that was sent out to dealers was in early April of 2023, and at first they were kind of slow selling, but it took about a week and then they're all gone. So now I have seen a few of these pop up on the used market, around 25,000. One disappeared, however, I don't know if he got close to that price or not. But it's almost seeming like maybe Gibson is going to make as many of these that will realistically sell within a certain time frame, since they have not published a certain number. Maybe in the future that will change, but there's definitely still pre-orders out there if you're willing to wait. I've heard the next batch of these is supposed to come somewhere around August-ish. Also, when these came out, Gibson announced the Gibson USA Greenies are coming. And I thought for sure we were going to wait until the end of 2023, but no, they officially came out on April 11th. But I'm not going to talk too much about those in this episode because we will do a separate review because they made them entirely different. So expect that review within the next couple of days. But now let's talk case candy, because the original collector's edition, you were invited to a really cool party to have dinner with Kirk Hammett. You got an awesome wood block, some coffee, all this good Gibson garage gear and swag, awesome leather COA booklet. That thing just had everything. This one, let's see what is in our case. First up, our COA is vastly different. As far as I'm aware, this is the current COA that they're using for the Murphy Labs division. It has a cool finished checked vibe to it, but you don't actually feel it, so it's just a printed design. But it looks like this on the inside, so no signed photo of Kirk Hammett on this iteration. Other than that, we do get a special medallion that you could choose to put on your guitar. We've got the counterparts to our Schaller strap locks that come stock on the guitar, and pretty much all our usual custom shop hang tags and reissue warnings, Mr. Dealer cards, etc. But this is new. I have not seen that in a guitar yet. They're promoting their Gibson app. So overall, my first impressions, since I've had the 50K version in my hands before, I can say, yeah, this is good, but it just doesn't feel anywhere near as good as the 50K one. Which means if you bought that one, congratulations, that thing was truly special. However, don't count this one out yet, because if it sounds anything like that one, who cares about fancy case candy? It certainly isn't worth paying on the used market $50,000 more for those minute details. So let's go ahead, throw this one on the workbench to take an individual look at its parts and specs. Inside the standard custom shop Greeny, let's see, what are our pickups? Miraculously, they are the exact same as in the 50K one, so it's the rhythm Greeny in the neck and the lead Greeny in the bridge. Now these were made in October, so it is slightly later than the initial collector's batch, but they do indeed appear to be the exact same. But looks like the water slide decal chipped off on that one. But here's what our neck pickup cavity looks like. You can see our long neck tenon, as well as the maple block that caps off our truss rod, and our nice cross section here that shows the mahogany body and the two-piece maple top. But our readings within the circuit, 8.32 k ohms in the bridge, 7.95 in the neck, and 4.07. Just for fun, let's compare them. So slightly different. Now I want you to look at the 50K version right here. And now look at these. It's definitely not the same, but there was an attempt to make it look like the pickup ring was cracked. They've definitely rounded them over a little bit more than normal. We've got some chips and chunks out of certain areas. And I was impressed to see this. You have the flat screw on the bridge height adjustment places and the domed versions on the neck. I thought for sure they weren't going to do that on the 20K version. But overall, the aging is very different when you get down to the nitty-gritty minute details. Like, for example, we don't have any green on this pickup cover, but you also have to remember, out of all the 50K ones made, each and every single one of those was a little bit different as well. So our ABR1 is mounted historically for a $20,000 custom shop. I would hope so. And here's what our ABR1 looks like on this particular example. It's got a light aging to it. But this is another difference, and I would actually say a good difference. So our tailpiece posts right here, they're still really decrepit and old looking, right? But not as decrepit and old looking as the other ones. The tailpiece of that thing was actually hard to get off, and it was just flaking, like they aged it too much. So I'd actually call this one an upgrade, because if you need to take your tailpiece off for whatever reason, it's easier to do. However, it's looking like they actually painted this tailpiece rather than aged it. I had a viewer of the show reach out to me that he had purchased one of these and returned it because this bugged him so much. And I'd have to agree with him, that definitely does look like some sort of a paint rather than chemically aged. But I don't think it necessarily looks bad, but it is lightweight aluminum. Now the knobs do look just a tad bit different. Like this one down here is a little bit more heavily aged, so maybe that just depends on what example you get. And then here's what our reflectors look like over here. We do have the rusty thumb pointers as well. But 2 volume, 2 tones, just different knobs for each pickup over here. And yeah, I played the same joke on you guys. I am the master at generating comments. Now we'll just take a second to appreciate the finish checking nicks and dings. Honestly, there's not a lot of finish checking on this in general. It's just they dinged up a bunch of stuff against it. But this has got some nice wood grain underneath it. And the flame top is actually way more crazy and active than the stock photos looked like from the dealer's website that I had purchased this one from. I really like this side. It's very active. And then of course you have your iconic finger rest wear right here, and it is drilled for a pick guard should you ever wish to install one for some reason. But anyways, we can move on to our mahogany neck now and Indian rosewood fretboard. Everything spec-wise is the same, it's just a different version of rosewood. And to me, Brazilian is all about the bragging rights, but some guys claim they can hear a difference. I measure a 17-degree neck pitch with a 4-degree neck angle, and we've got that nylon nut. Measures 1.69 inches. That increases to 2.05 by the 12th. First fret neck depth 0.94. Wow, 1.04 by the 12th. That's kind of chunky. Here's that neck on the contour gauge, 1st fret and 12th fret, just a nice rounded C shape. Certainly not an R8 baseball bat, but I would say it's a little bit on the fatter side for a 59 on this particular one. So headstock here, we've already talked about the aging, but you can kind of see it a little bit better in this lighting. Just very light finish checking that doesn't necessarily stand out. They're starting to get good at that. Like, that doesn't look like obvious razor blade technique. They're definitely throwing these things in freezers or something. Oh, we've got the historic style truss rod cover with the white beveled edge, always looking cool. And you can see the exposed Hollywood veneer right here. So basically, if you've ever wondered what that kind of whitish outline around historic Les Pauls and other Gibson models are on the custom shops, it's the Hollywood showing through. Kind of gives it a nice faux binding-like effect. And here we are. I guess we'll just take a second to appreciate the aging job. Then you can compare the two videos and you tell me which one did the better job. I like the ringy wood grain on this particular example right there. And then of course you get your bare area that they kind of discolored. That's really smooth. That feels nice. That reminds me of what the neck on that other one felt like. It just doesn't quite have that same smoothness as that's over here. So maybe it's actually just the type of mahogany that was used. But anyways, the electronics, the most important part. It's looking the exact same. It's the Gibson branded pots. You've got your Bumblebee capacitors wired up 50 style. The only thing I noticed that was different is this one is noticeably stamped R9, whereas the last one, reviewing my footage, it was not. But we still have the black output jack plate like the original has, and what I said earlier with the Schaller strap locks in both locations and our KH engraving. But we'll just take a second to look around the edges. Because photographing the edges of guitars is a little bit more difficult. Nobody ever takes time to appreciate the work that goes on over here. Moving up the backside of the neck, more aging until you get up here. Now here's another small difference. You see the filled in Kluson hole from the original tuners that were on here before the Spurzels? On the collector's edition, they were all filled in, but it almost looks like this one, they just filled it in with the finish because some of them kind of popped open. You can especially see that right here on this one. And here's a close up at the faux headstock repair. Again, they just chipped away the finish in a line to make it look like that. They didn't actually repair these. But it is cool how that continues from the face around to the top and then runs down the back. So it looks very convincing. And another big difference here is you do not have the original serial number on this one. That'd be 92208. But this one, the amount that they make, it just seems to go up. So we don't have any limited edition number down here to worry about. But all said and done, this one's pretty much 9 pounds. I will say though, a lot of that weight comes directly from the body, so it makes this example feel heavier than it actually weighs. But let's go ahead, plug this one in, and hear if it has the magic. Yeah, I mean, it's got the Greeny tone, if that's what you're going for. Now let me know all about the 20K Custom Shop 2023, Greeny. What are my final thoughts on this version? Honestly, I think it sounds just about as good as the collector's 50K version, but if you're just buying one of these to play, yeah, you're probably gonna be happy with it. However, the 50K one definitely does this better. So if you had purchased one of those hoping that it would be a good investment, this was the big worry point. If this was just as good, the other ones probably would have dropped in value. However, what they were able to recreate for this price is definitely good, but it's just, I'm spoiled. I'm sure the average Joe would pick this up and fall in love with it. But that's the reason you tuned into this review and demo, is you wanted somebody that has experience with both of them to chime in and tell you what the differences were. So in case you missed it, the aging is ever so slightly different. They had a little bit more attention to detail. Your case doesn't have the Kirk Hammett Greeny more on the outside. It wasn't aged as much. You don't have the Brazilian Rosewood fretboard. And of course you don't get the cool case candy. And yes, there are a few other minute differences here or there. Yes, but the guts are the same, and that's what's most important to people that wanted to buy these to play. Ultimately though, yeah, I did thoroughly enjoy playing this one, and since I have to review the same guitar 2 times, I thought I'd pay tribute to a different artist in this playing demo that used this guitar. So would I ultimately suggest buying one of these? If you're holding on to this as a collectible / investment, I don't know. I think I would hold off until we know for sure how many were made, but once we actually have that information and it does turn out to be a limited production of like 500 or whatnot, it'll probably be too late. The used market might be selling at premiums at that point. But if nothing else, finally reviewing and documenting this cemented how great the first run was. And stay tuned for the Gibson USA Greeny, because that thing is completely different than these, so don't even try to compare them. And I'm really excited to do that review. So I hope you found this video enjoyable. and helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel because I post content just like this every single day. If it's not a review and demo, we just look at something cool going on in the guitar community, either of something that showed up on Reverb or an auction that you might want to be aware of, or sometimes we just do fun unboxings. If you like guitars, especially Gibsons, you're gonna like this channel. Alright, Troglodytes, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day. And you might even enjoy this next one.